So moving on to our next chapter, following why should we measure performance, our next logical question, I think, for the coach is, if we agree that we should be measuring things and how the players are performing, what are the things that we think we should be measuring, and what are the things that we think maybe we don't have time for measuring or are lower priority on our scale? So the second question, what aspects of the performance should we be measuring, is a critically important question for the coach, because whether you have a full staff of coaches at a practice, which probably in beach volleyball isn't more than 2 or 3, and those are probably the most luxury situations for the coaches among us, or you're alone, you can only do so much and you can only measure so many things, because what you don't want to do is take in so much information that it can't be managed, or take in so much information that we can't learn from it, or take in so much information that our attention is drawn to data collection and not where it probably should primarily be, which is on our players' performance and providing them effective feedback. So when we're deciding what performances we should measure, we're going to make mistakes. In my experience, and with the many great people I've worked with, we bit off more than we can chew, should we say, at the beginning, is we started to measure everything, and we were spending a lot of time measuring everything. And what we started to learn is we learned some of these things matter a lot more than others. And so that's a process that all of us coaches have to go through, because it's the priorities or the things that matter to winning with our teams may not be the things that matter most to your teams. So for example, at the elitist level, I think most people would find that siding out or getting a first ball kill and serve receive is closely linked to winning the game in beach volleyball. But at younger kid levels, at the developmental level, say youth age or junior age, when kids are learning, what we find out is whoever can serve the ball over the net and in the court closely ties with winning more than anything else, because there just aren't a lot of side outs. And so the point is, I'll express to you what our findings were in terms of the most important things to measure, but those may not be what your experience is. And so my suggestion is just in the formula and not so much in the answer. So we'll find out what are the things that matter in a game most. What are the things that close correlate to winning? And in order to figure those out, you really need to know your team. You need to know who your opponents are. You need to know your league or your conference. You need to know what your schedule is, because those are the things that are really, really important and they're going to drive the decision, or drive rather your winning or losing. Is you need to know the strength of your opponent. And you also need to know your goals. Are your goals, I'm going to choose the things that matter most, that are most closely tied to winning? Or are we going to put the result aside and say, I'm choosing the things that develop my team the best? So for us, it was a combination. Often it was, we first tried to determine what are the events in the game or the skills that are most closely associated with winning. And so not surprisingly, we found out that first ball kill was really high on that list. We found a high correlation between teams that won and the percentage of first ball kills that they got in serve receive or earned in serve receive. Next, we found out that the quality of service reception was also very, very high on the list. And in fact, we found a close correlation between quality of reception and ability of the team to earn first ball kill. So those two things, after a lot of time and a lot of data analysis, rose to the top of our list. We then started to see that the quality of setting was very closely connected with first ball kill, and in fact was influenced by the quality of reception. And then we just continued to go down the list and figure out what were the more important skills or events in the game, and we started to measure those when we found out that we couldn't measure everything else. In the next section, what we'll start to talk about is what were we measuring, what were the things we found most important, and what were the standards? So how often did we need to get first ball kills? What was our percentage of in-system passing that we thought we needed? How often did we need to serve the ball in the court? how often do we need to score in transition? So in our next section, when we move on after the break, we'll talk a little bit about not just what are the things that we chose to measure because they correlated closely with winning, but what was the standard that we found was an appropriate measure of performance so that we could judge whether a player was performing that skill optimally or sufficiently or suboptimally and needed more time to train.